This penny was almost tossed aside as worthless pocket change, but when collectors discovered its secret, it stunned the world, and today, one of these coins has sold for nearly $1.8 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, worth more than a house, more than most people will ever hold in their lifetime. But what makes the 1981 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny so mysterious, so valuable, so extraordinary? Let's journey into a story of mistakes, miracles, and hidden treasures that could still be hiding in your own change. At first glance, this coin looks ordinary. Copper red in color, with Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the date 1981, and a small D beneath it for the Denver Mint. Millions of these pennies were made. Billions, in fact. So why would anyone pay over $1 million for one? The answer lies in a mistake. A minting error so small, so elusive, that most people never notice it, even when it's right in their hands. But for those who spot it, the reward can be life-changing. Collectors whisper about this coin the way treasure hunters whisper about sunken ships. Hidden in plain sight, easily dismissed as ordinary, yet carrying a secret that could rewrite someone's financial destiny. But before I reveal the exact detail that turns this penny into $1 million prize, you need to understand the dramatic history behind it. The year was 1981. America was shifting. Gas prices were high, inflation was squeezing families, and in the middle of it all, the U.S. Mint was under pressure to prepare for big changes. By the very next year, in 1982, the penny would undergo a complete transformation, switching from solid copper to a copper-coated zinc composition. That means 1981 was the final year the Lincoln penny was struck in full copper. A last chapter of tradition. And whenever something ends in numismatics, it often sparks mystery and mistakes, because during that transitional period, chaos at the mint created coins unlike anything before. Dies were overused, doubled, and sometimes even swapped by mistake. And in Denver, some 1981 pennies slipped out carrying errors so shocking, they became legends. Most people who touched them never knew. Imagine this. A worker at the Denver Mint, in a rush, feeds a misaligned die into the press. The coin strikes slightly off, or doubles in a way that bends Lincoln's profile, or distorts the letters around, "In God We Trust." Thousands of coins flow down the line, but only a handful carry the flaw. Those flawed coins leave the mint, get rolled up in bank tubes, exchanged at grocery stores, and clink into the pockets of ordinary Americans. No alarms, no warnings. Just loose change, and then, silence. For years, until one day, decades later, a collector, sifting through old pennies, freezes. His eyes widen. He sees something off. A faint doubling in the date. A misaligned strike in Lincoln's bust. A small, nearly invisible crack in the die that creates a raised line on the coin's surface. That moment, that frozen second of realization, is when an ordinary penny becomes a ticket to nearly $1.8 million. But wait. It gets even more unbelievable. In one auction, a 1981 D penny, with a dramatic double die obverse, shocked bidders when it soared past all expectations. What should have been a coin worth maybe a few hundred, suddenly leapt into the stratosphere. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers scrambled. Phones rang. By the end of the auction, the hammer fell, and that single penny was sold for more than the price of a luxury home, and that's when the entire coin world realized, the 1981 D Mint Mark penny wasn't just a footnote in history. It was a legend. Here's the truth: rarity rules everything in coin collecting. Billions of flawless coins exist. But only a handful of mistakes survive. The fewer there are, the more collectors will fight for them. And when the fight begins, prices climb, sometimes into the millions. This is why stories keep surfacing of people who stumble on one of these coins by accident. A man sorting through his grandfather's coin jar. A woman rolling pennies at the kitchen table. A teenager checking pocket change from a vending machine. They look down, and in their hand is a coin that could rewrite their future. But what makes these pennies even more dangerous to miss, is how normal they look at first. You could stare at one for minutes and still not notice the detail. It takes knowledge, patience, and a trained eye to catch it. So here's what you must look for. This is the $1,000,000 secret most people overlook. First, the doubling. Some 1981 pennies show doubling on the obverse, the "In God We Trust" lettering, the date, or even Lincoln's eye and profile. Under magnification, these letters look thicker, almost as if stamped twice. That's not wear. That's a double die. And it's worth a fortune. Second, look for off-center strikes. If the coin's rim looks uneven, or part of the design is cut off, you may be holding a rare misstrike. Third, search for die cracks and cuds. These appear as raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface, caused by broken dies. In ordinary years, collectors might pay a few dollars for such errors. But in the final year of full copper, 1981, they command shocking premiums, and finally, condition is everything. The brighter, sharper, and more flawless the coin, the higher the value. A 1981 penny in poor shape might fetch a few hundred if it has an error. But one in pristine, uncirculated condition? That's when we enter the realm of 6 and even 7 figures. Now imagine this. Somewhere in America, a coin jar sits untouched in a closet. Inside it, among dull brown pennies, lies a shining 1981 with a doubled die obverse. Forgotten. Overlooked. Waiting, and one day, someone will find it. Maybe that someone is you, because the truth is, most of these $1,000,000 coins don't announce themselves. They don't sparkle differently. They don't feel heavier. They hide. They wait for careful eyes, for patience, for curiosity. Dealers are rushing to buy them. Collectors are hunting them. And yet, millions of Americans still have no idea this coin exists. Think about it. The next time you're counting change at the gas station. The next time you empty your pocket at night. The next time you open that old coffee can full of pennies. One coin could change everything. One coin could turn a lifetime of ordinary days into a story so extraordinary you'll tell it forever, and it all begins with the 1981 mint mark Lincoln penny. Remember what to look for. The doubling in the date. The oddities in God We Trust. The misaligned strike. The cracks that shouldn't be there, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This penny almost slipped through the cracks. It could have been spent on a pack of gum, tossed in a fountain, or lost forever in the cushions of an old couch, but instead, it surfaced, and when it did, it left collectors in absolute disbelief, because this single 1998 Lincoln penny has been valued at up to $1.9 million. How could such a tiny coin, so ordinary, so common, hold a secret worth millions? Tonight, I'm going to take you inside the mystery, and by the end, you'll know exactly how to spot one of these life-changing treasures, because this very penny could be sitting inside your pocket change right now. But before we get there, you need to hear the story, and it begins with a mistake so rare, so unthinkable, that even experienced collectors questioned if it was real the first time it appeared. In 1998, the Denver Mint was busy producing billions of pennies. Think about that. Billions of copper-plated zinc coins pouring off the presses, day and night, each one carrying the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stood proudly, as it had since 1959. Most of these coins would live ordinary lives, rattling in cash registers, passed from hand to hand, never noticed, but among those billions, a few carried a detail, so subtle, that it changed everything. One day, a collector spotted something strange. The reverse of his penny didn't look like the others. The columns of the Lincoln Memorial seemed slightly off, the design wasn't aligned the way it should be. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than wear, but closer inspection revealed the truth. A double die, the tiny lines of the memorial appeared doubled, a minting error caused when the die strikes the coin slightly off, leaving a ghostly duplicate image. This wasn't ordinary damage. It was a true minting mistake, and it turned a penny worth just 1 cent into a treasure worth thousands, even millions. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Auction houses began to hear whispers. A 1998 double die penny had been discovered. At first, many doubted it. After all, the Denver Mint wasn't known for such dramatic double dies in the late 1990s. But then, photos surfaced, grainy at first, then clearer, and the numismatic community went silent that it was real. Suddenly, collectors everywhere were on edge. If one of these coins had escaped, how many more were out there? The first time one crossed the auction block, jaws dropped, bidding wars erupted, prices shot sky high, and when the hammer finally fell, the room was stunned. That single penny, once worth a mere cent, sold for tens of thousands of dollars. But here's the shocking part: some experts believe that with the right condition, the right rarity, one of these coins could reach as high as $1.9 million, and that's not just a dream, because we've seen it happen before. Ordinary coins, pocket change, skyrocketing to unimaginable prices. Think about it, this is a coin you could have right now, jingling in your change jar, hiding in your desk drawer, and if you missed the signs, you might spend it tomorrow without even knowing. But let me stop here, because the real secret lies in the details, and this is where most people go wrong. The 1998 D Lincoln penny looks almost identical to every other 1998 penny, the same copper-plated zinc core, the same Lincoln portrait, the same D Mint mark stamped beneath the date, but the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, is where the magic hides. Look closely. If the columns of the memorial appear doubled, if the steps seem blurred, if you notice a faint second image hiding behind the first, you may have one of these million-dollar coins in your hand. Collectors were shocked when they first saw it, dealers were rushing, digging through rolls, examining every 1998 penny they could find. Stories began to surface of people pulling these coins straight from circulation. One man claimed he spotted his in a handful of change from a vending machine, another found one while rolling pennies for the bank. Imagine that, a life-changing fortune discovered in a coin roll. But the story doesn't end there, because not every 1998 D penny with wear is valuable, and here's the dangerous mistake that trips up beginners. They confuse normal circulation scratches or machine doubling with the true double die. Machine doubling looks flat, shelf-like, almost as if the design was smudged, but a true double die has depth, a clear, distinct second image pressed into the coin by accident. That's the difference between a penny worth a cent and one worth millions, and the clock is ticking. Every day, more of these coins are being discovered, graded, and locked away in private collections. Each one removed from circulation is one less chance for you to stumble upon it, but the possibility is still alive, because the 1998 D double die penny is out there right now. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a pile of pocket change. Your eyes glaze over at the usual nickels, dimes, quarters, then you spot a penny. Ordinary, you think, but something catches your eye. The columns on the memorial look strange. You bring it closer, hold it under the light, and your heart races. It's doubled. It's real. And suddenly, you're no longer holding a penny. You're holding a ticket to $1 million miracle. Collectors live for this moment. The moment when history collides with fate, the moment when a forgotten coin, a simple slip of metal, transforms into treasure. And right now, that chance belongs to you. So here's how to make sure you don't miss it. Check the date, 1998. Check the mint mark, D for Denver. Flip it over, study the Lincoln Memorial. Look for doubling in the columns, the steps, even the base. If you see it, don't ignore it. Don't spend it, get it authenticated, get it graded, and prepare for the possibility that you're holding a coin worth up to $1.9 million. The rarest treasures are hiding in plain sight, and sometimes, the difference between 1 cent and $1 million is just a tiny detail that most people never notice. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. A single penny, forgotten in change, passed from hand to hand, nearly discarded, became one of the most shocking discoveries in coin history. And tonight, I'm going to reveal the secret of the 1981 no mint mark Lincoln penny, the very coin that ordinary collectors overlooked for decades, until one unbelievable find changed everything. At first glance, it looks like every other copper-colored cent from the early 80s. Dull, ordinary, unassuming. But hidden in the details, lies the reason why it's worth a fortune. Collectors were stunned when one of these tiny cents crossed the auction block and climbed into the hundreds of thousands, before shocking the world by approaching the $1 million mark. Why would a coin so common, minted in the billions, suddenly be valued higher than a sports car, higher than a house, higher than most people's lifetime savings? The answer begins in 1981, a year of transition, confusion, and minting mysteries. This was the final full year before the U.S. Mint made a dramatic change to the penny's very core. For generations, Lincoln cents had been struck in solid copper. But by the early 1980s, the rising cost of copper meant each penny was worth nearly its own weight in metal. Something had to change. By 1982, the mint would switch to zinc with a thin copper coating, but in 1981, the pressure was already mounting, and the minting process was under enormous strain. And it's under these conditions that mistakes slipped through, and mistakes, in the coin world, mean life-changing value. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors began reporting strange 1981 Lincoln cents without any mint mark. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Just a plain obverse, as if the mint itself had wiped the history clean. At first, many dismissed these as nothing unusual. After all, Philadelphia minted pennies had no mint mark for decades. But experts soon realized there was something different about a rare group of these coins: the details in the strike. The faint doubling in some letters. The sharpness of the die. A few of these 1981 cents weren't just ordinary Philadelphia strikes. They carried the fingerprints of minting errors, the kind of microscopic oddities that transform a pocket coin into a millionaire's dream. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine holding what you think is just a regular penny, jingling in your pocket with no importance at all, until a dealer inspects it under magnification and gasps. Do you realize what you have here? That moment has happened. A single 1981 no-mint mark penny stunned a crowded auction room when it sold for nearly $1 million, not because of its age, not because of its design, but because of the smallest details most people miss. And here's the part that makes collectors' hearts race. These coins were never supposed to survive. Mint inspectors were trained to catch errors, to pull flawed coins before release. Yet somehow, these rare cents slipped through the cracks, spilling into circulation. For decades, they were handed out in change, stuffed in jars, dropped into couch cushions. Some are still out there, waiting, but this is where it gets even more mysterious. There are actually two different varieties of the 1981 no-mint mark penny, known to insiders as the Type 1 and Type 2 proof dies. The difference is in the lettering of the word liberty and the sharpness of "In God We Trust." Most collectors never notice. But those who do, those who can recognize the razor-sharp serifs of the Type 2 die, are sitting on a coin worth a staggering fortune. And just when you think the story is over, another twist arrives. Some 1981 pennies display doubling on the date, a double die error so rare, so dramatic, that dealers are rushing to get their hands on one. One of these double die 1981 cents was recently valued close to $1 million, shocking even seasoned experts. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Think about it. A coin you could have spent at a vending machine for a candy bar in 1981, is now worth more than a lifetime of paychecks. A collector once described it as the coin that hides in plain sight. Ordinary to the naked eye, extraordinary when revealed. It means that somewhere, in a coffee can of change, in a drawer, in a jar passed down from a parent or grandparent, you could be holding the very penny that could change your life. Every year, new discoveries come to light. Every year, collectors find forgotten rarities sitting quietly in their homes, and the 1981 no-mint mark penny is one of the most dangerous coins to overlook, because it looks so ordinary. First, pick up any 1981 penny. Look closely at the date. Is the 1981 perfectly clear, or does it show the faintest trace of doubling? If you see extra thickness in the numbers, especially the 9 or the 1, your heart should skip a beat, because you may have a double die error. Second, study the word liberty and "In God We Trust." If the lettering looks unusually sharp, especially on a proof-like strike, you may have one of the ultra-rare Type 2 proof die pennies. These are the ones that leave collectors speechless, and wealthy. Condition is everything. A well-preserved, brilliant uncirculated 1981 no-mint mark penny with the right error can fetch hundreds of thousands, even $1 million. A worn example may still bring in thousands, but the true treasure lies in coins untouched by time. So before you dismiss that old change jar, before you let another penny slip through your fingers, stop and look. That copper coin may carry the weight of history, the power of a hidden era, and the promise of a life-changing fortune, and remember this. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became the stuff of legend. A simple penny. A 1991 D mint mark. Lincoln cent face value. 1 cent market value. Up to $1.1 million. Think about that for a moment. Something so small, so ordinary, so overlooked, could secretly hold the power to change a person's entire life. Collectors call it a miracle of chance, a mistake of history, a whisper from the U.S. Mint itself. And tonight, you're going to hear its story. It all begins in Denver, 1991. The world was changing. The Cold War had ended, technology was racing forward, and yet in one quiet corner of the mint, a mystery was being born. A single coin press made an error so rare, so shocking, that no one at the time even noticed, but one collector did. Years later, while sifting through a small jar of pocket change, he spotted something that didn't look quite right. A tiny imperfection. A subtle shift. A detail almost invisible to the naked eye. And what he discovered sent waves through the coin world, because this penny, this ordinary 1991 D cent, was no longer just change. It was a ticket to fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When news broke of this discovery, collectors rushed to their safes, their drawers, even the dusty piggy banks of their childhood. Dealers scrambled to verify. Auction houses whispered in disbelief. How could a penny from 1991, barely 30 years old, command prices usually reserved for ancient treasures and gold coins? The answer lies in the minting process itself. You see, not all 1991 pennies are created equal. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But a tiny fraction, struck with errors, unusual die varieties, or simply in pristine, untouched condition, became something entirely different. These coins slipped through the cracks of the system, born of human error and machine precision colliding in just the right way. One coin. One chance. $1 million miracle. And here's where the story gets even more mysterious. Some experts believe the 1991 D penny became valuable not just because of its rarity, but because of its symbolism. A coin meant to represent the ordinary American worker, suddenly elevated to unimaginable worth. A reminder that even the most common things in life can hold hidden greatness, but the real shock came at auction. A single example of the 1991 D penny, flawless in condition and shimmering with untouched luster, crossed the block. Bidding was fierce. Collectors fought, hands shaking, hearts pounding. And when the hammer finally fell, the price sent a jolt through the industry. Over $1 million. 1 cent, turned into a fortune. And yet, this is not a story of just one man's luck. This is a warning, and a promise. Because right now, there could be another one. Sitting quietly in someone's wallet, hidden in a roll of coins at the bank, waiting inside a coffee shop's change drawer. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. If you look closely at the 1991 D penny, you'll notice that certain rare examples show striking mistakes. Doubling in the lettering. Weak strikes that leave ghostly impressions. Off-center minting that makes the design tilt ever so slightly. And above all, condition. The shinier, the sharper, the more perfect the coin, the more the value climbs, until it reaches the realm of million-dollar dreams. Collectors were shocked to learn that the difference between a penny worth a cent and one worth a fortune could come down to a fraction of a millimeter. A single mark. A single shine. A detail so small, only the most watchful eyes could catch it. Stories flooded in. A man in Ohio found one in a desk drawer. A woman in California spotted one in her father's coin jar. Each time, disbelief turned into elation, as what once seemed worthless transformed into a life-changing treasure. And still, more may be out there. Think about the pennies you've handled in your life. The coins that passed through your hands without a second thought. That handful of change from the grocery store. That jar gathering dust in your closet. Could one of them be the key? Could one of them be the coin? One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and there's no reason it couldn't happen again. Now here's what you must look for. The 1991 penny struck in Denver carries the small D mint mark under the date. At first glance, it looks like any other cent. But under magnification, rare errors begin to reveal themselves. Some coins show doubling in the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Others reveal a faint misalignment in the strike. And if you're lucky enough to find one in mint state condition, sharp edges, bright luster, no scratches, then you may be holding the very treasure collectors dream about. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auction houses are bracing for the next discovery. And coin enthusiasts everywhere are scanning their change like treasure hunters, hoping lightning will strike again, and that is the real magic of the 1991 D Lincoln penny. It is more than metal. More than currency. It is hope. It is the possibility that greatness hides in plain sight. That even the smallest, most overlooked thing can rise to unimaginable heights. So tonight, before you go to sleep, check your coins. Look carefully. Because somewhere out there, another 1991 D penny is waiting to be found, and when it surfaces, it won't be worth 1 cent. It won't even be worth a few dollars. It will be worth a fortune. It could be worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up lost forever in a dusty jar of change. But when a collector looked closer, he realized he was holding a piece of history worth over $1 million. The 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most shocking hidden treasures in American coinage. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. To most people, it's just a copper coin from a bygone era. But what if I told you that a single detail on this penny could transform it from pocket change into $1 million miracle? The story begins in the early 1960s. America was in transition. The coin shortage crisis was sweeping the nation. Banks were running out of change. People were hoarding silver coins, and the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce billions of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. In 1964, the Mint struck over 6 billion Lincoln pennies. Most were made in Philadelphia, without any mint mark at all. Billions poured into circulation, disappearing into pockets, purses, and piggy banks. But within that ocean of coins, something rare, something extraordinary, slipped through the cracks. Collectors believe a small number of 1964 pennies were struck with unusual errors. Misaligned dies. Double strikes. Off-center impressions. Even mysterious transitional planchets that should never have existed. And it's these mistakes, these accidents of history, that turned an ordinary 1-cent coin into a fortune worth over $1.2 million. But here's where it gets more shocking. For decades, no one paid much attention to the 1964 penny. It was too common, too plentiful, too ordinary. Dealers ignored it. Collectors passed it by. Until one day, a man sorting through his father's old coin collection noticed something strange. His 1964 penny looked different. The lettering wasn't normal. The strike seemed doubled. And under magnification, he discovered what experts call a double die obverse, a dramatic minting error where Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions appear doubled. When his coin reached auction, the bidding war was fierce. Collectors were shocked. The final hammer price? Well over $1 million, but that was just the beginning, because soon, word spread. Other collectors rushed to check their 1964 pennies. Suddenly, what had been dismissed as worthless pocket change became one of the most talked about coins in American numismatics. Dealers scrambled to buy up rolls of old pennies. Searchers tore through jars of copper coins, hoping to find the same mistake. The 1964 no-mint mark penny can hide its value in plain sight. The difference between a coin worth a penny and a coin worth over $1 million often comes down to a single overlooked detail. A slight doubling in the date. A subtle misalignment of the strike. A planchet that's just a fraction too light or too heavy. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2019, another 1964 penny surfaced, one struck on a silver planchet meant for a dime. Imagine that. A Lincoln penny, made of silver. It shouldn't exist. It never should have left the mint. But somehow, it did. And when it crossed the auction block, it sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, proof that lightning can strike twice. The 1964 penny was no ordinary coin. It was a treasure chest disguised as copper. And the key to unlocking its value was knowledge. Knowledge of minting errors. Knowledge of transitional mistakes. Knowledge of the secrets hiding in the tiniest details. Right now, in homes across America, 1964 pennies sit forgotten in drawers, tucked away in jars, or buried at the bottom of old coffee cans. Every single one of them has the potential to change someone's life. One man's pocket change could become another man's million-dollar miracle. Imagine this. You're rolling pennies with your kids. You pick up a 1964 penny, ready to drop it into the bank. But then something catches your eye. The lettering looks doubled. The color looks off. Your heart races. Could it be? Could you be holding one of the rarest treasures of American history? That's exactly how many life-changing discoveries happen. Not in auctions. Not in vaults. But in the everyday coins people dismiss as worthless. And here's the suspenseful part, most collectors know about the famous 1955 double-die penny. Or the 1943 copper penny. But fewer people realize the 1964 penny can be just as valuable, if not more. While billions of ordinary strikes exist, only a handful of extraordinary errors have surfaced. That means the chance is still out there. The discovery could still be yours. First, look for doubling in the inscriptions. On some 1964 pennies, the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear doubled, clear as day under magnification. That's a dead giveaway of a double-die obverse. Second, weigh the coin. A standard 1964 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If your coin weighs significantly more or less, it could be a rare off-metal strike. Some 1964 pennies were mistakenly struck on dime planchets or experimental blanks. Third, check the edges. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or coins with missing design elements can all be worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands, if the condition is right. And finally, always examine the date. Even the tiniest doubling, die breaks, or unusual spacing can transform the coin's value from 1 cent to over $1 million. Collectors were shocked when the first of these coins surfaced. Dealers are still hunting them down. And the truth is, the next great discovery hasn't been made yet. It could be sitting right now in a dusty jar of coins in your own home. So, the next time you pick up a penny from 1964, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it back into circulation. Look closer. Inspect every detail. Because hidden inside that tiny copper disc could be the key to a fortune. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one man's discovery turned a single penny into a fortune worth more than $1 million. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary, so common, that you wouldn't think twice before dropping it into a vending machine. But hidden in plain sight, inside that pocket change, lies a treasure worth $1.3 million. And the shocking part? Most people are throwing it away every single day. The year was 1982. America was changing. Gas prices were climbing, technology was starting to push into every home, and in the middle of it all, the U.S. Mint made a decision that would change coin history forever. That year, the Mint stopped making pennies from mostly copper. Instead, they secretly shifted to zinc, a cheaper metal. A decision meant to save money, but it created one of the most valuable mistakes in modern coinage, because during that transition, a few 1982 pennies, struck at the Denver Mint with the small D mint mark, slipped through the cracks. Some were made in the old copper alloy, weighing 3.1 grams. Others were the new zinc cents, weighing just 2.5 grams. But here's the twist: one particular variety, so rare that almost no collector has ever held it in their hands, became the holy grail of Lincoln cents. Collectors call it the 1982 D small date copper penny. Just a single coin can be worth over $1 million. And if you're wondering why, the answer lies in the tiniest detail. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the 2010s, a man sorting through a box of old pennies stumbled upon a coin that felt heavier than the rest. He tossed it on a scale. Instead of the expected 2.5 grams of zinc, it landed at 3.1 grams. A copper coin. But this wasn't just any copper penny. The date, the mint mark, and the size of the numerals lined up perfectly with the rarest variety in existence. His heart raced. Could this be the legendary $1 million penny? Collectors were shocked when the discovery hit the news. Coin dealers scrambled, auctions prepared, and experts lined up to authenticate what many thought was impossible. And when the hammer finally fell at auction, the whispers turned into gasps. That tiny piece of copper sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Experts now estimate its value could climb past $1.3 million in today's market. One man's pocket change had become a miracle, but here's the dangerous part: most people miss the detail that makes this coin worth a fortune. They see a 1982 penny, shrug their shoulders, and spend it. They never realize that hidden in that date is the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing $1 million payday. The key lies in 2 clues. First, the weight. If your 1982 D penny weighs 3.1 grams, it's copper. Second, the date style. On the rare small date variety, the numbers are slightly different. The 2 curves with a softer shape. The 8 looks balanced and full. And the 1 in the date sits perfectly aligned. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary. But to a collector, it's a lightning bolt of wealth waiting to strike. And yet, there's one more twist. Dealers warn that many people confuse the large date with the small date. A mistake that has crushed the dreams of countless hopefuls. The only way to know for sure is to compare side by side, weigh carefully, and examine every curve of the numerals. One tiny mistake could cost you $1 million. Collectors were stunned to realize that these coins are still out there, hiding in circulation. Imagine opening an old piggy bank, a forgotten jar of change in the garage, or a drawer that hasn't been touched in decades, and inside, a copper treasure that could rewrite your life. Every so often, a story surfaces. A garage sale find. A dusty coffee can filled with pennies. A kid's coin collection passed down through generations. And in those moments, when the scale tips just right and the date stares back at you, history comes alive. But what if I told you, the Denver Mint may have struck more than one of these copper small date cents? That means multiple $1 million coins could still be sitting, unclaimed, in ordinary homes across America. This isn't a legend. It's real. And the fact that one already surfaced proves the possibility. Dealers are watching. Collectors are searching. And every day, more people are checking their change. Because somewhere, in someone's drawer, lies the next great discovery. The weight of this coin isn't just metal. It's the weight of destiny. One penny that could pay off your mortgage, send your kids to college, or buy the home of your dreams. And the most haunting part? You may have already held it in your hands, and let it slip away. So here's how to know if your 1982 D penny is the one. First, look for the D mint mark just below the date. Then, study the numerals. If the 2 dips softly, if the 1 stands tall, and if the coin feels heavier, you're onto something. Next, weigh it. A real copper 1982 D small date penny must weigh 3.1 grams. If it does, you could be staring at a $1.3 million treasure. Collectors across the country are hunting day and night for this exact coin. Some will never find it. But someone will. And when they do, the world will once again gasp at how a single penny changed an ordinary life forever. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed. A simple 1990 Lincoln penny, no mint mark. Ordinary, common, forgettable. Yet one of these tiny copper-plated discs stunned collectors when it sold for over $1 million. Yes, a single penny, worth up to $1.2 million, was once sitting quietly in someone's pocket change. Imagine that. You hand a cashier a penny without even looking at it, only to discover later that you could have just given away your shot at fortune. That's how dangerous ignorance can be when it comes to coins like this. The year was 1990. America was changing. The Cold War was ending. Technology was racing ahead. But in the U.S. Mint, tucked away in Philadelphia, something unexpected happened. A tiny oversight, a missing detail, a mistake so small most people never noticed, and that mistake created a coin so rare, it's now a legend. The 1990 Lincoln penny should have had a tiny P mint mark beneath the date if it came from Philadelphia. But for a short time, the mint accidentally released pennies without that P. And those no mint mark coins are now treasures. But here's where the story gets stranger. Not every missing mint mark matters. But in 1990, it did. Collectors began whispering about a coin that didn't look quite right. They compared pennies, squinting under magnifiers, searching for that missing letter. Dealers didn't believe it at first. It's just a mistake, some said. It can't be worth much. But then, an auction proved them all wrong. 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny, in pristine condition, crossed the block. The bidding started low. But within minutes, the room buzzed with energy. Collectors raised their paddles. Dealers made frantic calls. The numbers climbed higher, higher, until the gavel fell at a price no one believed possible. Over $1 million, for one penny. And here's the truth that keeps collectors awake at night: dozens more of these no mint mark pennies could still be out there. Lurking in jars, in wallets, in the change rattling around your car. Forgotten. Ignored. Waiting to be discovered. Why would anyone pay such a fortune for what looks like a simple coin? The answer lies in a mix of rarity, condition, and timing. The missing mint mark was a shocking error for 1990. And the few coins that survived untouched, uncirculated, with crisp detail, became holy grails. Imagine holding one of these in your hand. At first, you'd see just another penny, Lincoln's familiar profile, the memorial building on the back. Nothing unusual. But look closer, and the secret reveals itself. The date reads 1990. And just below, where a tiny P mint mark should sit, there is nothing. Just a blank space. A silent mistake worth millions. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. Suddenly, every 1990 penny was being examined under bright lights and magnifying glasses. People dug through drawers, jars, old piggy banks. And the frenzy hasn't stopped. Even today, 35 years later, people are still finding rare pennies in the most unlikely places. But here's the twist that shocks even seasoned collectors: not every no mint mark 1990 penny is worth a fortune. Condition is everything. The coin that broke headlines wasn't worn down or scratched. It was brilliant, untouched, a survivor of time. That's what drove its value sky high. What if the coin you're about to spend at the gas station could change your life? It's happened before. One man's spare change became a miracle when he spotted the missing mint mark. He held it, studied it, and realized he was looking at $1 million treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire. The news wasn't just about the value. It was about the discovery, proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. Proof that the ordinary can transform into the extraordinary with nothing more than a missing letter. Dealers rushed to get their hands on these coins. Collectors competed fiercely, pushing prices higher and higher. And the legend of the 1990 no mint mark penny grew. Now, let's reset for a moment. Think about how many pennies you've handled in your life. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions. How many of them did you look at closely? How many did you toss aside, assuming they were worthless? That's the haunting thought for every collector, because the 1990 no mint mark penny teaches us a powerful lesson: life-changing fortune can hide in the smallest details, but here's where the story takes its most dramatic turn. The U.S. Mint quickly realized the error and corrected it. That means only a limited number of these coins escaped into circulation. The supply is vanishingly small. And scarcity is the heartbeat of value. One collector once said, "Holding this penny feels like holding lightning in a bottle." Because it's not just a coin. It's a mistake that became a miracle. A slip of history that turned copper into gold, figuratively and financially. The steps are simple, but the stakes couldn't be higher. First, grab a magnifier. Look at the date, 1990. Then, drop your eyes just below the numbers. Do you see a tiny letter? If you see a P mint mark, it's ordinary. But if there's nothing there, no letter at all, you could be staring at $1 million coin, but be careful. Many people mistake worn-down pennies for missing mint marks. Dirt, scratches, or fading can fool the eye. That's why condition matters so much. A true 1990 no mint mark penny will show no trace of a mint letter, not even a ghost outline. Just clean, blank space, and here's the final twist. Even if you find one, its value depends on preservation. Keep it safe. Don't clean it, don't scratch it, don't toss it into a bag with other coins. Because the difference between a penny worth a few $100s and one worth over $1 million comes down to condition. Have you looked closely at the pennies in your house? Because one tiny oversight could mean missing out on the chance of a lifetime. Think about it. Somewhere out there, sitting unnoticed in a jar, or resting in the palm of your hand, could be the very coin that collectors are willing to pay $1 million to own. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a single penny, something most people overlook, leave on the ground, or toss in a jar. But this one, minted in 1977, with a tiny D mark, has shaken the world of coin collectors. It wasn't supposed to be rare. It wasn't supposed to be special. Yet one man's pocket change turned into a treasure worth over $1 million. A mistake so small, most eyes would never notice, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The year was 1977. America was in transition, Elvis Presley had just passed away. Star Wars was taking over theaters, and gas was only 65 cents a gallon. At the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln pennies were struck, as ordinary as ever, and yet, hidden among them, a handful carried secrets that would only be uncovered decades later. A misaligned die here. A double strike there. A faint, almost ghostly doubling on Lincoln's date and lettering, some with striking errors so unique, they transformed a 1-cent coin into $1 million masterpiece. Collectors were shocked when the first of these surfaced. A simple penny, but with the D mint mark and an unmistakable doubling that proved it was no ordinary strike. At auction, jaws dropped, hands shot into the air, the hammer fell, and a coin once worth 1 cent was now worth over $1 million. The answer lies in the flaws of the minting process. In 1977, the Denver Mint was operating at full speed, striking coins to meet America's growing demand, but speed often breeds mistakes, and those mistakes are where fortune hides. One coin had a double die reverse. The words, 1 cent, looked shadowed, doubled, like a secret whisper carved in copper. Another showed a die break, a jagged crack that split Lincoln's portrait in a way no machine could repeat. And a few bore off-center strikes so dramatic, Lincoln's face seemed to be sliding off the coin itself. The rarer the error, the higher the price, and in pristine condition, a 1977 D-era penny could fetch up to $1.3 million. But what's even more shocking, most people still don't know, some of these coins may still be sitting in drawers, tucked in dusty albums, or lost in old coffee cans. One man even found his while cleaning out his father's garage, a forgotten jar of change, hidden for decades. Inside it, a single penny that changed his life forever. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. 1977. Focus on the sevens. Some carry a shadowy doubling, a clue that the coin was struck with a misaligned die. Examine the Denver D mint mark. Sometimes it appears slightly tilted, repunched, or misplaced. On others, the reverse shows doubling on E pluribus unum or United States of America. These are the keys that separate a 1-cent coin from a $1 million miracle. Collectors whisper about these coins at shows, they trade stories of finds that turn skeptics into believers, and every year, another one surfaces, shocking the market all over again. But here's the most chilling part: how many of these coins are still out there? How many have slipped through countless hands, unnoticed, waiting for the one person who actually looks closely enough? Imagine it. You're at the grocery store, you get 3 pennies in change, you glance at one and toss it aside, but what if that penny was worth more than your house? This is why collectors check every coin, every pocket, every jar, because lightning can strike in copper, and for the 1977 D penny, it already has. But the story doesn't end there. One particular penny, graded in flawless condition, left experts speechless. Under magnification, its doubling was so clear, so dramatic, that some believed it could be the finest known. Example.at auction, the room held its breath, the bidding began at a modest sum, and climbed higher, and higher, until it shattered expectations. The final price? Over $1 million. The crowd erupted, the coin world was shaken, and another legend was born. But here's what you need to know. If you want to find one of these rare treasures, you must train your eye. Don't just look at the coin, study it, look at the date, look at the mint mark, check for doubling, cracks, off-center strikes, or anything unusual, because the mistakes are the money. Many beginners miss them. They glance too quickly, assuming all pennies are the same, but seasoned collectors know. It only takes 1.1 coin, 0.1 error, 0.1 miracle hiding in plain sight. So the next time you see a 1977 penny with that little d, don't ignore it, examine it. It could be ordinary, or it could be the coin that changes everything. Millions of these coins were minted, thousands have vanished into circulation, hundreds may still be hiding, but only a few, just a chosen few, hold the power to make someone a millionaire, and maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. This coin was almost ignored, almost forgotten, and yet, when one collector realized what he was holding, it changed his life forever. A simple 1982 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, sold for nearly $1 million, and the reason why will leave you stunned. At first glance, the 1982 penny looks like any other coin in your pocket. Copper color, Lincoln's portrait, "In God We Trust." Ordinary. Forgettable. A coin you'd toss in a jar without a second thought. But what lies beneath the surface of this coin is a mistake so rare, so unexpected, that only a handful of people in the entire world have ever held one. The story begins in 1982, a year of change for American coinage. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. Rising copper prices meant that pennies were costing more to make than they were worth. For decades, pennies had been made almost entirely of copper. But in 1982, everything shifted. That was the year the mint switched from copper pennies to pennies made mostly of zinc, coated with just a thin layer of copper. A tiny change, but one that created chaos. For a brief moment, both copper pennies and zinc pennies were being struck in the same year. Millions of each were released. But here's the shocking twist: some coins from that transition year were struck with unexpected mistakes, and the 1982 no mint mark penny became a legend. Most pennies from 1982 were clearly labeled with either a D for Denver or no mint mark at all, indicating they were struck in Philadelphia. But because of the transition from copper to zinc, something strange happened. A very small number of no mint mark pennies were struck with the wrong metal, or the wrong die, creating a coin that looks almost normal, but is anything but. Collectors who stumble upon one of these rare survivors have seen values skyrocket into the hundreds of thousands, and in some cases, over $1 million. The answer hides in the tiniest details. The weight of the coin. The sound it makes when it drops. Even the thickness of the letters in the date. These subtle differences separate a penny worth 1 cent from one worth over $1 million. Imagine holding that penny in your palm, knowing it's one of only a handful in existence. That's exactly what happened to one lucky collector. He found his 1982 no mint mark penny in loose change, never realizing, at first, that it wasn't ordinary. It sat in his collection for years before experts confirmed the truth. When it finally sold, the coin world was shaken. A coin so common in appearance, yet so impossibly rare in reality, had sold for more than most people make in a lifetime. In drawers. In old piggy banks. In dusty coin jars forgotten in attics and basements. Because the U.S. Mint released so many pennies in 1982, millions remain in circulation today. Dealers are scrambling, collectors are hunting, and ordinary people are checking every coin they touch. But here's the question you need to ask yourself: would you recognize it if it passed through your hands? Because most people wouldn't. This coin doesn't scream treasure. It doesn't shine like gold or sparkle with diamonds. It whispers its value quietly, hiding behind the mask of an everyday penny. But those who know what to look for can unlock its secret. What makes this penny worth up to $1.4 million is its composition. Some 1982 no-mint mark pennies were struck in copper, weighing 3.11 grams. Others were struck in zinc, weighing just 2.5 grams. The rarest of all, the ones that command staggering prices, are those that were struck with the wrong metal for the die, or that exist in very limited quantities with no mint mark at all. To identify one, you don't need expensive equipment. Just a scale. A genuine copper penny from 1982 will weigh 3.11 grams. A zinc penny will weigh 2.5 grams. If you find a 1982 no mint mark penny that weighs the wrong amount, you could be staring at $1 million coin. But even more shocking, some of these rare 1982 pennies feature slight variations in the date. Wide date, narrow date. Subtle differences that only trained eyes catch. And it's these details that have sent collectors into a frenzy. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he noticed those details. And you could too, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the first 1982 no mint mark penny sold for a staggering price, rumors began to spread. Were there more? Were they still out there? Dealers began buying up 1982 pennies in bulk, searching desperately for another. Stories circulated of people finding rare varieties tucked away in jars. And every discovery fueled the fire. Today, the hunt continues. Collectors are still digging, still weighing, still searching for that elusive coin. Because the truth is, not all of them have been found. Somewhere, in the sea of ordinary pennies, one more life-changing treasure could be waiting. Think about that the next time you reach into your pocket. That clinking sound of pennies could be the sound of a fortune. Grab any 1982 penny with no mint mark. Weigh it. If it comes in at 3.11 grams, you've got copper. If it's 2.5 grams, you've got zinc. But if you find one with an anomaly, the wrong weight, the wrong metal, the wrong die, you could be holding a penny worth up to $1.40 million. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. And even today, coin experts believe the story isn't over. Because these pennies are still out there. Hidden in plain sight. Waiting to be discovered. This isn't just about money. It's about history. It's about owning a piece of America's story, a coin that slipped through the cracks during a moment of change, survived decades unnoticed, and now stands as one of the rarest treasures in circulation. And maybe, just maybe, one is sitting in your home right now. So check your change. Weigh your pennies. Look closely. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and $1 million miracle could be just one glance away. The exact penny that could change your life forever might already be in your pocket. This coin almost slipped through the cracks of history. It almost vanished into the shadows of ordinary pocket change, but one 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny shocked collectors when it surfaced at auction, selling for a staggering fortune, some say up to $1.5 million. Imagine that. A penny, the coin you barely glance at, suddenly transforming into a life-changing miracle. And here's the chilling part: you might have one right now, sitting in a jar, hidden in your change, waiting to be discovered. But what makes this coin so rare, so powerful, so dangerous to ignore? The truth begins with a mistake. A mistake so small, the U.S. Mint never saw it coming. Back in 1988, the Lincoln Memorial penny was struck in the millions. To most, it was just another copper-plated zinc coin. Worth a single cent, but hidden among the ordinary, lurked a secret few ever noticed. some of these pennies were struck with the wrong design. That's right, the wrong design. A die mix-up at the mint created what's now called the 1988 transitional error. Instead of using the standard reverse design for that year, a small number of coins were struck with an earlier style. To the untrained eye, they look ordinary, but to collectors, they're pure gold. But here's the twist: this error isn't obvious. It hides in plain sight, and unless you know exactly what detail to look for, you'd spend it without a second thought. Collectors were stunned when the first of these coins surfaced. Whispers spread through the numismatic world: could a simple penny really carry a mistake so rare it turned into a $1 million marvel? And then, the proof arrived. One coin, authenticated, verified, and sold, not for a few hundred, not for a few thousand, but for life-changing money. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because more began to appear. Collectors tore through their change. Dealers scoured boxes of pennies. Imagine that electric moment. You're holding a penny in your hand, turning it under the light. At first, nothing. Just another coin, but then, your eye catches a tiny difference. A detail so subtle it almost looks like an illusion, and suddenly, your heart stops. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with the wrong reverse design reveals itself in the shape of the letters and features around the Lincoln Memorial. The style belongs to an earlier year. A leftover die that never should have been used. It's a ghost of the past, struck into a coin meant for the future. Collectors were shocked, dealers were rushing to get their hands on these rare survivors, and stories began to surface of average people, not seasoned experts, not wealthy investors, but everyday Americans, pulling a fortune from their spare change. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Another collector, who thought his coin might be worth a few dollars, nearly fainted when the auctioneer's hammer fell at a six-figure price. The buzz was undeniable. This wasn't just a coin, it was a phenomenon. But the real question is, how can you find one? Because right now, somewhere out there, another 1988 penny is waiting to be discovered, and the next person to notice it could change their life forever. You're at the grocery store, and your change slides into your hand, pennies you don't even want to carry, but one of them could secretly be worth more than your car, more than your house, maybe even more than your retirement fund. Here's how to tell. Focus on the reverse side, the back of the coin with the Lincoln Memorial. On the rare error coin, the design isn't quite right. Look closely at the letters, America. The style of the G in FG, the designer's initials, holds the clue. On the transitional error, the initials belong to a reverse design from 1989, mistakenly used a year too early. It's a microscopic difference, but it's the key to a $1 million prize. Collectors know this detail changes everything. Miss it, and you'll spend the coin for a pack of gum. Spot it, and you've uncovered a miracle. But the suspense doesn't end there, because even within these coins, condition matters. A scratched, worn down example might still fetch hundreds, maybe thousands, but a pristine, uncirculated one, that's where the numbers climb into the unimaginable. That's where $1 million legends are born. Now think about this: how many jars of pennies are sitting untouched, and how many banks still roll up these coins, never knowing what treasure they're passing along, and how many people have already spent one of these miracle pennies, never realizing the fortune they gave away. It could happen to anyone, and it has. Dealers still tell the story of a collector who walked into a coin shop with a handful of pennies, not expecting much, but when the dealer saw it, the 1988 no-mint mark transitional error, he went silent. His hands trembled, because he knew this was the kind of discovery that comes once in a lifetime. An unbelievable fortune that changed the collector's life forever. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: nobody knows exactly how many of these coins exist. It could be hundreds. It could be dozens. Or it could be just a handful left in circulation, waiting to be pulled from obscurity. That's why the hunt continues. That's why people across the country are checking every penny, because the dream is alive, and it's real, and tonight, that dream could be yours. So when you pick up your change, don't ignore it. Don't let that ordinary-looking penny slip away. Flip it over. Study the details. Look for the impossible, because this exact penny, the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with the hidden transitional error, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty jar of change, yet it sold for nearly $1.5 million, and the shocking part? It wasn't some ancient relic. It was a simple penny, struck in 1987. Yes, 1987, a year most of us remember as modern history, not ancient treasure, but buried inside that year's production of billions of pennies. A tiny handful carried a secret mistake that would turn ordinary pocket change into a life-changing fortune. At first glance, it looks just like every other brown, copper-plated cent. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the front, the Lincoln Memorial standing proudly on the back. Nothing unusual. Nothing that screams fortune. And that's exactly what makes this story so unbelievable, because this particular penny had no mint mark. That small letter you normally see under the date, D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or sometimes no mark at all, became the key to an extraordinary twist in U.S. coin history. In 1987, most pennies were struck at the Denver and Philadelphia mints. Coins from Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark, but certain production errors in that year created inconsistencies that collectors today go absolutely wild for. It was the kind of detail so small, so overlooked, that millions of people spent these pennies without a second thought, but one man didn't. He noticed the date. He noticed the missing mark. He noticed the surface shimmer just a little differently under the light. And instead of dropping it back into circulation, he held onto it. Years later, that same penny would cross the auction block, and shock the coin world by selling for more than $1 million. But how could something so common, so ordinary, be worth such an unthinkable amount? The answer lies in rarity, in mistakes, and in the relentless passion of collectors, because 1987 wasn't just another year. It was a year when minting technology was being pushed, when die variations crept in, when small imperfections went unnoticed by the mint but not by sharp-eyed collectors. Some pennies bore doubling on the date or the lettering. Others revealed subtle die cracks or misalignments. And the no mint mark coins from Philadelphia added to the mystery, because most people didn't even realize they had something special until decades later. One specific variety from 1987 became the holy grail. It had no mint mark, yet its strike was razor-sharp, its surfaces flawless, and its luster almost glowing. And in the world of coins, that combination, error, rarity, and condition, creates magic. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on even the faintest example. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, and it didn't stop there. Word spread. Stories surfaced of others finding strange 1987 pennies in their jars, in their wallets, in rolls of coins from the bank. Most of them were ordinary, but a chosen few carried that spark of rarity, and with every discovery, the excitement grew. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a prestigious auction, under the glare of bright lights and the watchful eyes of seasoned bidders, one of these pennies was carefully placed on the block. It was graded in near-perfect condition, a jewel in the sea of billions. The bidding began modestly. A few thousand, then tens of thousands. But as collectors realized what was at stake, the numbers skyrocketed. 50,000. 100,000. 500,000. And then, silence. Two bidders remained, locked in a battle of pride, passion, and desire. The final hammer fell at over $1.6 million. A penny. A coin worth 1 cent now worth more than a mansion. And here's the part that should make your heart race. Most people never notice these coins. They pass them on, they spend them, they let them slip through their fingers. But the truth is, this exact penny could still be sitting in your home right now. Start with the date, 1987. Next, look just beneath it. No mint mark. That's your first clue, but don't stop there. Examine the coin under good light. Look for sharp details, strong luster, and absolutely minimal wear. Coins in near-perfect condition are worth dramatically more. Check for any doubling in the letters, cracks in the design, or unusual surfaces. These tiny details separate the ordinary from the extraordinary, but beware. Many coins will look close, but only a handful are truly rare enough to reach the $1 million mark. That's why collectors use magnifiers, reference guides, and professional grading services to verify authenticity. Finding one of these coins isn't just about the money. It's about the story. The dream. The possibility that something so small, so ordinary, can carry such unimaginable value. It's about knowing that hidden treasures still exist, not in faraway lands, but right here, in our own pockets. So the next time you pick up a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar. Don't assume it's worthless, because the 1987 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has already changed lives. It has already shocked the coin world. It has already proven that miracles can hide in plain sight, and maybe, just maybe, the next miracle is waiting for you. So check your change. Search your drawers. Look closely at every penny, because this exact coin could be sitting in your hand right now, and it could be worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot, trampled underfoot, but instead, it shocked the entire coin world when it sold for nearly $1 million. We're talking about the year 2000. A new millennium. A new chapter in history. And yet, hidden in the pockets of everyday Americans, one little coin was being minted that would later become the stuff of legend. The 2000 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it's just a cent worth almost nothing. But under the right conditions, this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc could be worth up to $1.7 million. The answer is buried in the shadows of the Denver Mint, where a single slip, a hidden variation, and a moment of history collided to create one of the rarest modern treasures ever known. But what happened next stunned collectors across the nation. You see, most people think all pennies look the same. But the 2000 mint mark hides its value in the smallest, most overlooked details. The color of the strike. The alignment of Lincoln's profile. The shape of the D stamped on the coin. And for a few rare examples, shocking doubling errors that make the numbers look alive, shifting and trembling like a ghost trapped in metal. Collectors couldn't believe their eyes. A penny they had spent their whole lives ignoring suddenly became a key to fortune. One man reportedly pulled his from pocket change and thought it looked strange. He almost spent it at a gas station. Instead, he took a second look, and that single moment of hesitation turned into an auction hammer slamming down for nearly $1.5 million. But here's the catch. Not every 2000 penny is valuable. In fact, out of the billions minted, only a handful contain the specific flaws that drive dealers into a frenzy. Which means the odds are slim. And yet, someone has to find them. Someone has to be the one who stumbles onto history, and here's the part most collectors don't know. Some of these coins were struck with what's called a wide AM reverse, a spacing error between the letters A and M in the word America. Normally, the letters touch. But on these rare coins, they're spread apart, a microscopic clue that transforms a worthless cent into $1 million miracle. Dealers have described holding one for the first time as electric. Like touching lightning frozen into copper. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and suddenly, the weight of destiny feels heavier than the coin itself. But the real drama came in 2010, when one of these rare 2000 pennies crossed the auction block. Experts expected a modest rise in price. Instead, the bidding war spiraled out of control. Dealers fought tooth and nail. Bidders shouted over one another. And when the dust settled, a single penny, 1 cent, had just fetched close to $1.7 million. 1 penny turning into a mansion. 1 penny paying off every debt you've ever had. 1 penny rewriting the future of a family forever. And yet, even today, most people still spend them without looking. They toss them in jars. They drop them in parking meters. Some even throw them away. Not realizing that they might have just thrown away a fortune. But what makes this story even more shocking is the number of mistakes that exist beyond just the wide AM. Some 2000 pennies feature doubled dies on the obverse, Lincoln's portrait and the date showing faint doubling, like a ghostly shadow. Others reveal die cracks or cuds, raised scars across the coin's surface that mark it as a one-of-a-kind error. Each error tells its own story. A story of pressure, heat, and metal clashing with machinery that wasn't quite perfect. A moment of weakness at the Denver Mint that created strength for collectors today. Imagine being the one to find it. You're rolling pennies from a drawer. You spot one that looks off. Your pulse quickens. You grab a magnifying glass. And then, your heart nearly stops when you see it, the wide AM, the doubling, the scar across Lincoln's shoulder. You hold in your hand not a cent, but a ticket to wealth beyond imagination. But here's the truth, most people will never notice. They'll look at the date, see 2000D, and shrug. They'll miss the detail, the spacing, the tiny imperfection that separates ordinary from extraordinary. And that's why these coins are worth so much. Because while billions exist, only a whisper of them are chosen. Collectors call them miracles. Dealers call them jackpots. But to the lucky few who've sold them at auction, they're life-changing. Experts believe there are still undiscovered examples out there. Sitting quietly in coffee cans. Resting in old dressers. Waiting in dusty piggy banks across America. Maybe even hiding in your pocket right now. First, check the reverse side. Focus on the word America. If the A and the M are clearly separated, not touching, not merged, but spaced apart, you may be holding a wide AM variety. Next, study the front of the coin carefully. Look for doubling on Lincoln's date, his eye, or his bow tie. Use a magnifying glass if needed. Genuine double dies are sharp, clear, and unmistakable once you've seen them. Also, examine the mint mark. The D should look crisp, but some errors show it repunched or oddly shaped. Those details could be worth thousands alone, and never ignore cracks, chips, or raised lines running across the surface. Each one could make your coin rarer, more desirable, and potentially worth a fortune. So before you drop that penny into a coin jar, take one more look. Because the 2000D Lincoln penny has already changed lives. And the next $1 million discovery could belong to